History remembers men who shout. It forgets men who keep the machinery running. Walter Sooy Jeffries was never meant to be remembered because remembrance was never his function. He was not a symbol. He was not an idea. He was a mechanism. One of thousands of men who occupied the middle layers of American power during the most dangerous decades of the 20th century. And when those decades passed, the country moved on, leaving behind only records, votes, and stone. This is the story of one of those men. Jeffries became mayor of Margate City in 1931, at the exact moment when American local government began collapsing under the weight of the Great Depression. Tourism vanished. Property taxes went unpaid. Public trust evaporated. Jeffries did not govern a city of optimism. He governed a city of anger and fear. Every decision carried loss. Cut services or raise taxes, delay repairs or risk collapse, preserve stability or invite revolt. That Margate survived those years without scandal, removal or bankruptcy speaks volumes. Jeffries governed without spectacle, because spectacle would have destroyed confidence. As Atlantic County Sheriff, Jeffries entered one of the most volatile environments in New Jersey. Prohibition had ended, but its infrastructure remained. Organized crime did not disappear. It legitimized itself. The sheriff's office was the final buffer between law enforcement, political pressure, criminal adaptation. Jeffries navigated this terrain without becoming a headline, which, in that era, was success. Power here was not loud. It was carefully balanced. Jeffries' career trajectory fits a known political archetype, the safe man. He was repeatedly placed into offices where scandal would be catastrophic, stability was more important than vision, discretion, outweighed ambition, mayor during collapse, sheriff during post-prohibition instability, treasurer during wartime finance. These are not offices given to risk-takers. They are given to men others trust not to fail. That pattern itself is evidence of character. Jeffries' 1938 run for Congress was not revolutionary. It was corrective. By then, Americans were exhausted, grateful for New Deal relief, fearful of permanent expansion, uneasy about federal reach. Jeffries did not attack Roosevelt. He offered management over momentum. When he defeated Elmer Wen, it wasn't a movement, it was a pause. Jeffries entered the 76th Congress as the world collapsed. Every vote carried existential weight. The draft. The Selective Training and Service Act of 1940 forced lawmakers to confront a terrifying truth. America could not remain untouched. Jeffries voted knowing what mass mobilization meant, what war demanded, what delay could cost. This was not a symbolic vote. It was a surrender of innocence. The Navy. The Two-Ocean Navy Act was a quiet declaration of intent. Jeffries voted knowing neutrality is a luxury history eventually removes. Jeffries did not dismantle the New Deal. He helped define its borders. He voted on relief not as an ideologue, but as an administrator, weighing necessity against permanence. This distinction matters. Jeffries was not anti-government. He was anti-dependency. Jeffries never became a committee chair, a Senate candidate, a statewide figure. This wasn't failure. In the 1930s, 40s, advancement required ideological branding, factional alignment, public conflict. Jeffries avoided all three. He was useful, but not promotable. And in machine-era politics, that often meant you keep the system running, but the spotlight goes elsewhere. Jeffries left few recorded speeches. This is often misread as insignificance. In reality, the House functioned on committees, procedural votes, behind-the-scenes negotiations. Members like Jeffries attended consistently, voted predictably, avoided public grandstanding. They were counted on. That's why leadership tolerated them, even if history ignored them. New Jersey in 1939 to 1941 was industrial, coastal, strategically vital shipyards, factories, rail corridors. Jeffries represented a district that would be mobilized, whether voters liked it or not. When he voted on naval expansion, defense appropriations, the draft, he was voting with direct consequences for his constituents. This gives moral weight to otherwise abstract votes. When Jeffries lost re-election in 1940, he did something rare. He accepted it. No accusations, No reinvention, no bitterness. Power, to Jeffries, was never personal property. As Atlantic County Treasurer during World War II, Jeffries handled the unglamorous side of patriotism. Budgets, bonds, continuity. War is fought with bullets, but sustained with accounting. Jeffries ensured the home front functioned. The photograph he used for Congress, Jeffries in Shriner regalia, adds an important layer. Shriners were fraternal, establishment-oriented, community-facing, politically neutral, but socially powerful. Shriner membership implied respectability, charity, elite civic integration. This reinforces the portrait of Jeffries as a man embedded in networks of trust, not ideology. That image alone silently tells the audience, this man belonged to the system. Jeffries died in 1954, quietly. No memorials, no legacy structures, no heirs to power. And yet the laws he voted on remain active. Jeffries' burial at Laurel Memorial Cemetery is unadorned. No statues, no slogans, no honors. This aligns with his life. Men like Jeffries didn't build legacies. They maintained continuity. And continuity doesn't leave monuments. At some point, the record goes quiet. Not because the man was unimportant, but because history only preserves noise. What we don't know, and why it matters. There comes a point in every historical investigation when the record goes quiet, not because the subject was unimportant, but because history does not preserve everything. With Walter Sooy Jeffries, there are clear limits to what survives. We do not know his private thoughts as he voted on the first peacetime draft in American history. There are no surviving letters that tell us what he feared or what he hoped would never come. No diary entries describing how it felt to watch Europe collapse while America debated preparedness. We do not know what he said behind closed doors, in committee rooms, in hallways, or during quiet conversations that never reached the congressional record. We do not know whether he doubted his votes or whether he believed they were inevitable. We do not know if he worried about the sons of Atlantic County being sent to war, or if he believed the cost of delay would be far greater. We also do not know the full shape of his family life. The historical record does not tell us how he spoke at the dinner table, whether he discussed politics at home, whether his family supported his decisions or feared them. That silence is not accidental. In the early 20th century, public servants were not expected to perform their inner lives for history. Many believed that duty required discretion, and that personal reflection was not for the public record. We do not know what Jeffries thought when he lost re-election in 1940. There are no speeches of bitterness, no public defenses, no attempts to reclaim power. We only know that he returned home and accepted the next responsibility placed before him, and perhaps the most striking absence of all. There is no moment where Walter Sooy Jeffries tells us who he wanted to be remembered as. No memoir, no recorded legacy, no attempt to frame his own story. That absence tells us something essential. It suggests a man who did not believe history belonged to him. Only the work did. In an age before constant self-documentation, before political branding, before curated legacy, men like Jeffries lived with the assumption that results mattered more than remembrance. And so, the record ends where it must. Not with certainty, not with closure, but with silence. That silence is not a failure of history. It is history, reminding us that the most consequential decisions are often made by people who leave behind the fewest words. Why this story matters. Walter Sooy. Jeffries represents the men history uses and discards. They govern when it's hard. They vote when it matters. And when the moment passes, they vanish. Not because they failed, but because the system never intended to remember them. And that is why his story belongs here. Walter Sooy Jeffries did not seek immortality. He showed up when it was difficult. He governed when it was unpopular. He voted when the consequences were unknown. History remembers presidents and generals, but democracy survives on men like Jeffries, men whose names fade, even as their decisions remain. And here, beneath this quiet stone, his work finally speaks. There are very few moments in life that you can write your own story on family members and what they contributed to the world and at home. This was the story of one of mine. Walter's life mattered. If this man was not here, neither would I. If you enjoyed this video as much as I did making it, please give this video a like and subscribe for more videos. This has been Tales from the Tombs NJ.